Hi everyone, it's Stu here from 3B, and today I'm going to be talking about what is HD audio, UHD audio, lossless audio, and all those sort of high-end audio formats that are floating around now, and what that actually means to you and your ears. First of all, let's cover some sort of ground here. First of all, we have sort of Apple Music, Spotify, and a few others, Pandora, and all those others floating around in the sort of music streaming ecosystem that stream at what the sort of a normal bit rate. Apple streams at the lowest, which is not too much of a surprise, at 256 kilobits per second. Spotify and a few of the others at 320, and now we're starting to see an adoption of more of a lossless bit rate and format as well, with the introduction of Amazon HD and Amazon UHD music. The likes of Tidal and Qobuz have been around for some time and have been streaming in a real lossless format at very high bit rates, all the way up to 24 bits by 196 kilohertz. And I'll explain what that actually means to you. It's actually pretty simple, and I can understand why Amazon are using the term sort of HD and UHD. So first of all, let's explain what exactly that means in a nutshell. What all this 256, 320, 196 kilohertz, 24-bit, all that actually means. In a nutshell, I don't want to bore you to death with all the technicalities. If you're really interested in it, there's a number of YouTube videos, I'm sure, that explain it much better than I could in far greater detail, and really you'll come away with the understanding that what it is essentially is when music is taken from the master and then formatted into a means that is a smaller file format that can be downloaded or streamed easier. It has to slice it. It has to cut it up into little chunks. And how it does that is it has an algorithm and a format, and all these different Spotify and Apple and Amazon and Tidal all use different formats. Some use the same. And that's where we sort of have MPEG files, AAC, OGG Vorbis, FLAC, and so on. They're just different files, formats that use an algorithm that uses that to compress the file from, or to create the file from that master. So what we end up with is what that does is it cuts it into chunks. So the lower the bit rate, so for instance we have Apple Music, those are much larger chunks of sound, of bits, of information that's coming through and then being fed to your ears via the DAC, which is which is the thing that basically converts that information into sound that your amplifier that can then use. What that then does is we have these huge chunks. Sort of, if we use Apple Music as an example, we have these large chunks of 256 kilobits per second, which isn't a huge amount because they're larger chunks. It's a lower bit rate. That means that the information that's being fed through the DAC and then through the amplifier and then through to your ears is not as much as it would be, say for instance, if it was a 320 kilobit per second file. Or of course, if you then go to a higher resolution, more chunks, more information, the more information that DAC then has to use to convert that file into an audio for your amplifier to then feed to your ears. So that's basically what it is. So you don't really need to get hung up by that. All you need to understand is the higher the bit rate, the better. And the higher the kilobits per second, the better. But you will need a higher end system or a means of converting that through a DAC to an amplifier to your ears to really appreciate that. Now I can understand why Amazon have used the terms HD and UHD. The reason they've done that, and this is kind of clever, I kind of understand why they've done that, and it does make a lot of sense, in the fact that by using HD and UHD we understand what those terms mean visually. But if we say lossless or high resolution or high bit rates, we can then see that that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. If you're sort of outside the audio world, you don't understand. Well, a lot of people just don't want to understand, don't care about it. It's not in their sort of vernacular and understanding. It's not something that interests them. But whereas if you use HD and UHD, we all understand that because we know what that represents in terms of visual clarity. We know that HD is better than standard definition. We know UHD is even better than HD and standard def. So by using those terms in an audio format or an audio way, in an audio service, it kind of makes sense. So I do understand why Amazon have done that, because it allows people to understand that HD is better than standard, UHD is better than HD, and so on. The key thing really that you have to understand with all that is that you're only really going to benefit if you have the equipment to play it on. Playing it on your phone through the in-ear headphones that you got, earbuds that you got from your phone manufacturer, you're not really going to notice much difference between HD or UHD or even standard, 256, 320 kilobits per second to HD. You're probably not going to notice too much. Therefore, if you want to really get the better of that, of those services, I will be doing my feeling is the best DAC out there is the Chord Mojo. It's a tiny little thing. It's not cheap, but it certainly is the best, and it can connect it up to a hi-fi, which I have there, and I also connect it up to my phone when I sort of travel around and so on. And I'll explain why using a DAC such as that as opposed to the DAC which are built into your phones or whatever you're using is probably not the best option. So I'll do another video on that. But overall, that's all you need to understand. The higher the resolution, much like it is when you watch a TV, the higher the resolution, the better the picture. The higher the resolution in sound, in terms of kilobits per second, the better the audio, providing, much like when you use a TV and it's a crappy old 720p TV that says it's HD ready and you watch a HD source and it's really rubbish, if you listen to a HD UHD audio file on your phone, you're going to think that's rubbish too, because you're not hearing any difference. So those are the key things to take away from it. The higher the bit rate, the better. HD and UHD are just new terminologies for the same thing that's been around for a very long time. And basically, the higher the resolution, the higher the bit rate, the more slices there is for the information to be fed for your DAC to your amplifier and then to your ears. So I hope that helps. Discuss it amongst yourselves below, whether you think it's worthwhile, whether you think it's just snake oil, whether you think it's a load of nonsense, whether you're going to be using any of these services. Do you have a favorite? There's a lot of lossless file formats out there. What are your favorites? What do you think of them? And let me know what equipment you have too. It's always interesting to see what you guys are listening on. Okay. Don't forget to press the bell, because you won't get any notifications when I've done another video, if you feel so inclined to see me once again. And don't forget to subscribe. That would be really helpful. Thanks again, and I'll catch you very soon. Take care.